had a little town called Kildorrery in County Cork, Southern Ireland. Beautiful it was.
Yes, ma'am.
It was in a little gate lodge. We had one room and a very large kitchen.
Our father worked as a saddler on the estate. It was owned by a wealthy English family. Well, all the big houses in the area were owned by English people.
The cottage had thick walls and it was warm. There was an enormous open fire where the turf was laid down on the floor. The turf used to glow a beautiful red colour. It would give out a terrific heat.
Hup! Here's the sweeps.
Well, I was the youngest of 8 children. There were 6 boys and the 2 girls. There were 2 beds in the room, and the children had to sleep in the foot of the head, and someone had to sleep in the bed with my parents.
We had what was called a settle bed, which was sort of like a closed-in settee, which was a seat during the day, and at night you opened it out and the mattress and the clothes were folded in there.
Well, of course, we were put up in the bed and we were supposed to be asleep. We were sitting up listening. Oh, there were a lot of lovely old Irish tunes.
My father knew some lovely songs. And he sang beautifully.
Oh, my mother could sing too, but she never sang in front of people. She was very shy, like me. I was very shy. Oh, but Mother was a very industrious woman, and she reared chicken and turkey and all that sort of thing. She was very hard working. You'd hear the sewing machine going all night for us. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the sewing machine would be going
And
for
you
us.
remember the flour came in large sacks. Irish Purity it was called. And there was a picture on the sack of an Irish colleen with a green dress and white apron and red shawl. Well, my mother used to make the underwear from the sacks. And I often went to school with Irish Purity across my back and chest.
Well, my sister Josie was 5 years older than me, so she used to have to help me mum a lot.
Oh, we had the little hand irons. You had to heat them on the fire. And when they were heating, they'd get dirty. And you'd have to clean them on a sort of turf with a piece of cloth. And sure, by the time you'd finished cleaning them, half the heat had gone out of them.
I used to love to watch me mum make the wholemeal bread. And I remember that I was so small, I could hardly reach up to the table, so I used to have to stand on a stool.
You put the flour on it, and the salt, and then you mix it all up, and then you put the milk in.
Sour milk we used to have to use, you know, not the fresh milk.
Sour milk now. And then you just flatten it.
Oh, I used to love to watch me mum do it. So I was able to do it then, you see.
Oh, did you ever make a column egg with milky cream with greens and thick and scallions blended like a picture in your dreams? And did you ever make a hole on top to hold the melting flake of the flowery flavoured buttermilk your mother used to make? Oh, you did, so did she, and so did I. And the more I think about it, sure, the nearer I'm to cry. Oh, when weren't those the happy days when troubles we knew not, when your mother made cannon in the little skillet pot. You did very well.
Our father worked as a saddler on the estate. He'd take the horses from one fair to another, and when he delivered the horses, he'd walk back. My father often walked anything up to 40 miles, having delivered the horses. But I used to love the springtime of the year. This is the time when the sheep are having lambs. I'd get up in the morning, go into the kitchen and say, "Are there any lambs this morning?"
Yeah, there's 2.
Oh, look, there's 3.
There's 4.
And when I got home in the evening, I'd see maybe 20 or 30 lambs jumping around the fields, as if they had a fair spring.
People used to throw out things like cups and saucers and jugs, and I'd go out and collect all the broken pieces and go out in the fields and I'd lay them all around in the grass and pick flowers and lay out all the lovely colours. I used to love doing that. I used to call it cabby.
We used to love to go out in the fields, and you know, they had lots of rivers in the fields. So we'd take off our shoes.
And no, what would Mother say?
It doesn't matter. And we'd go walking in the river. You know, when it's a really hot day, you just walk in the river. Oh, my mum used to go wild. She'd say,
"You'll get a cold that way."
But we'd do it anyway.
Or if there'd been a storm, we'd go out on the roads, watch the steam come up.
There were cottages round us. They were mostly herdsmen and farming people, and one or two railway people. There was a cottage that there was an old signalman living in, and his wife, Mary Ann.
Oh, we used to pester the life out of them. I can remember one Sunday they'd gone to Mass and we went into their cottage because we had 2 hen turkeys, but we didn't have a cock turkey.
So what we did, you see, we brought our turkeys over to Mary Ann's house in the kitchen. Well, we thought that her cock turkey would shred our hen turkeys, but that would be all right, you see, because we'd have young turkeys.
I shouldn't the blooming cock turkey fly around, knocked everything over, all the shining from the shells and all the dead, and of course we nearly died.
So we had to clear up and come out. Come on.
And then when Mary Ann comes over to our house, shut up.
My God, I don't know who was over in my place. The whole place is upset. The turkey must have flown up in the shell.
And we were bursting laughing. We went to a village school.
When I'd be going out to school, it'd be...
When you get home, I want you to do the churning.
If I was lucky, I went to school 3 days a week. I didn't get much education.
If I stayed home from school, it wasn't because I had a pain in my head or my toe. It was because I had to take a horse or two to the forge. Or I'd be picking up stones in the fields.
Sure, there'd be a race from the time we left home to the time we got to the school door. We never stopped running. I don't know what would have happened if we was to be late.
They were very strict at the school. You were supposed to be there, unless you were very ill.
Yes, my God, it was strict. I got plenty of walloping there. Walloped with those pointers for not knowing your catechism. Or not knowing your sum. Or not being able to spell.
But our teacher, Miss Toole, oh, she had a great spot in her heart for our family, because she had her eye on our Uncle Dan. Do you remember?
Miss Toole was a man and a woman bashed into one. Well, she had the big farming boys to cope with. Great, hefty lads. They took some managing.
Well, I remember one day I was getting up to some tricks at my desk, and she called for order, and sure it didn't come. But she had this cane, you know, an ordinary cane, but she had an ash plant as well, you know, swishy, swishy. Stop it.
I said, order.
Well, she came over to my desk and she said,
I'll move the legs from under you.
Sure, the desk fell over and I was all covered in the ink.
Miss Toole give us a lot of poetry and recitation in Irish. I walk to my wukaleen, my story note my hay machine. I walk to my wukaleen, I gobble she's and boher. Nil broger me regakashin, regakashin, regakashin. Nil broger me regakashin. No copy, listen, now Stoker. They brought her lunch with us. A couple of slices of bread.
Slice of homemade cake.
A bottle of milk. Did you ever take the day to cake or boxty to the school? Tucked underneath your rockster with your monkey slate and blue. When the teacher wasn't looking, what a great big bite you take. Oh my God, sweet potato cake your mother used to make. Oh, you did, so did she, and so did I. And the more I think about it, sure the nearer I'm to cry. Oh, and where else there are few days when trouble between you lot. When your mother made cook cannon in that little skillet pot.
Your first communion when you were 7. My mom's sister was living over in America and she sent me a beautiful white frock. Oh, it was a lovely frock. It had a lace cape and I got the wreath of the veil and the shoes and all.
I look beautiful.
God.
Well, it was the only nice thing that I'd ever had.
But when you were making your first communion, they were very strict. You'd have to get a friend or an older sister to go over it with you.
Who made you?
God made me.
Why did God make you?
God made me to know him, to love him, to serve him in this world, and be happy with him forever in the next.
Kitty, the morning of your communion, the priest shall ask you whatever question he wants to ask you. You have to know it all off.
It would have been a crime of you to make a mistake. But it was nice, you know.
When they see you dressed up as a young communicant, they'll give you a couple of bob in your purse. So... I made you a little bag with a string on it.
Lovely. Well, they'd come over to you and they'd say,
Here's a shilling.
or if you were lucky,
There's a half a crown.
If they saw you and they knew you, they'd give you a couple of bob in your purse, and by the end of the day you might have 2 or 3 pounds. You thought you were a rich woman.
ah, well, I'd give it to me, ma'am. Or buy me a new pair of shoes. Or keep it for yourself.
In those days, children weren't quite so fond of money. They liked to share it out.
I can remember my confirmation twice as well. My God, that was a great big day. We were up all night. We must have been washed about 20 times with our hair done with new suits. First one I ever had. And I thought I was going to heaven the next day.
And I got a beautiful white frock with 3 flounces on it. And I had little flowers going all around the crown. Can you see them?
Our mother was a really good sewer. She was the one who made the dresses for us. And the 2 dresses were the very same. And we had our photograph taken, smile.
Well, we were all shivering in the cold weather. I mean, we were used to wearing a coat or a cardigan, you know. But we were so fanciful in our white frocks, we didn't want to wear a coat or a cardigan. We wanted everyone to see us. Well, the bishop only came down once every 3 or 4 years, you see, and I was kind of young to be confirmed. My sister was confirmed at the same time.
Turning around to kiss you behind me and making a face or something. And the 2 of us, we were just shaking with the laughter. You know the kind of thing when you get into a fit of the laughter and you can't stop. We had the whole place laughing.
We were examined by the bishop.
What is an occasion of sin?
An occasion of sin is any person, place or thing that entices us to sin.
You, girl, what's the meaning of redemption?
I was shaking when he started asking the questions.
He pointed out who he wanted.
What's the meaning of exorcism?
Or some question like that, you know.
When did our Lord rise from the dead?
Sure, you didn't know who he was going to ask next.
And some of them were never even asked at all. I was asked some silly question, I don't know. I think I knew the answer anyway. Oh, nicely made sandwiches.
And just all sitting at this big posh table in the church hall.
And rows of cups all along the table, and sweet cakes, and jelly, and custard. My Aunt Jane, she took me in, she gave me tea out of her wee tin. She gave me cake with sugar on the top, and 3 black buns out of her wee shop.
Childhood. Oh, in spite of, you know, half the time no milk in your tea and no butter on your bread. But I had a very happy childhood. Josie, are you going to come out and play?
I know I can't. I've got to help me man.
Right.
Well, the others were all out playing. But I couldn't. Well, being the eldest girl, I had to stay in and help me man, you see. She wasn't a trained midwife, but she brought a lot of the local children into the world, and I'd go with her. And she'd lay out the dead people as well. I remember the wakes very well indeed. Seeing them laid out in their beds, all in white, all white linen, and the candles. And there'd be stories about how good the dead person was, and the part they played in the Irish freedom struggle. It was really quite exciting. I think I learned the whole history of my homeland at wakes.
How we came to leave that house is a story in itself. The family my father worked for sold off their big house and new people took over. Hodgins. They were what we called black Protestants. They were bitter. This Hodgins used to go around on his big horse. And I'm not exaggerating when I say, if you didn't more or less climb up on the fence to let him and his big horse pass by, he whipped you. Yeah. I can remember getting a crack at the whip. The IRA burned down some of their property because he was involved in recruiting for the British Army. Now my father wouldn't have anything to do with this burning whatsoever. But shortly after this, all the families that lived in tied houses on the estate were served with eviction notices.
Well, this Hodgins came up to our cottage on a Sunday morning and said,
I shall be coming up here this evening and I shall lock the house up. I want everything out. Everything.
well, we had a bit of furniture, we moved it to the flank wall of the house until he gave the order.
Get that stuff away from the house.
So we moved it to the side of the hedgerow. Wait, just waiting for someone to come along and take it.
Oh, it was absolutely pouring out with the rain. Anyway, my father managed to get a horse and cart, and we ferried all the bits of furniture, everything, into the main town, which was Fermoy.
I remember it just the same as if it was yesterday. I was just getting on for 10 years of age. My family talked and wept about it for years and years after.
Through a cousin, my father managed to get a bit of land and a little house on the side of the Galtee Mountains, near Kilbehenny, and we moved there. It was completely different. A huge difference.
Well, the place we come from was quite a rich place with well-tilled, plenty of fat cattle and good land.
Oh, this place now. It was a mountainy kind of place. Little bits of farms, thinly populated. Sure, there wasn't much doing there.
Well, shortly after we moved to the new place, my mum fell ill. And with her in bed most of the time, sure Josie had to do everything.
Yeah, and with 3 brothers still at home to look after. Oh, I needed to get away from home. Because all it was at home was all work and no money. I wanted to work in the city. We used to get the Irish National paper, the Irish Independent, and there'd be advertisements for sanatoriums, hospitals. I'd hide the paper, hoping I'd be able to apply for one of those. Well, one day, a cousin of ours, Bridie Wilson, she came to visit. Now, she was the matron at the Richmond Asylum in Dublin.
How are you getting on there, Josie?
I am just peppering to get away from home. I must get away.
Oh, what are you thinking of doing?
Oh, I'll do anything. I'll just do anything. Bridie, can you make room for me in your establishment?
Oh, no, Josie, you wouldn't like it. I can guarantee you wouldn't like it.
Oh, I'll give it a go if you'll have me.
I'll send the form over for your mother to fill in, all right?
Right.
Oh, but you listen, you're going to have to get the priest to sign it.
So, the form came and the priest signed it.
Well, I give you a good reference, but I don't think you'll like it.
If I can get in, I'm going.
Granny Wilson will do the best she can for you. I know that.
I filled in the form saying I'd been educated at the convent. Well, I hadn't. But there was a bit of status about convent education. But that bit wasn't filled in when the priest signed it. Well, I was accepted. And I went off to Dublin. I went down for breakfast. There was this huge dining room. Enormous dining room for all these people. All as mad as hatters. And fighting amongst themselves. I mean, there was no treatment at all. Just the straight jacket and the padded cell. And they didn't even have cups and saucers. They had bows. And these bows, they were flying through the air, here, there, and everywhere. I ran like hell. I got to my bedroom. And I cried. And cried. Dear Mum and Dad, the uniform is blue and white. It's very attractive. The stockings and shoes are made on the premises by the patients. I shall get 30 shillings a week and I'll be fed in clothes, so I'll send money home. I hope you're all well. Love, Josie. I cried day and night. 3 weeks.
Hope you're all well, love, Josie. Josie was well settled in Dublin, that's good. And we soon got to know everybody round about, and they soon got to know us.
I went to a new school then, run by the Christian Brothers. They were a religious order and they were very hard men. Their psychology was to give you a pasting if you didn't know your lesson. You learned your lesson or you were crucified. They were very, very hard men indeed. I remember once we were all standing around the blackboard doing algebra. The brother would put up a sum and call out to one of us to finish it off. Now the lad next to me and I were fricking and jostling each other and he turned round and caught me. Well, pulled me in, he hit me, he banged my head off the blackboard. I have the mark around my head to this day as a souvenir of that incident. And if you went home then and told your father, I got clattered today by the Christian Brothers, he gave you another one. On the grounds, if you deserved to get one from the Christian Brothers, he was going to give you another one just to show you. Don't do it again. Whatever it was. Don't do it again.
Well, I went to the convent school there. We were all taught by the nuns. Oh, they were very dedicated, very good teachers. And considering the poverty that was around at that time, I think they gave us a good, solid foundation. But of course, sex education was unknown in those days. So I remember one day one of the nuns came over to me and she said,
"Come along, Catherine. There's a book we've got to read."
She brought me down into her room and she sat me at one side of this long table and she sat at the other clutching hold of a rosary. And she said,
"Read that book, cover to cover."
Well, she didn't explain a thing to me. I sat there in front of her reading this book. It didn't mean a thing to me. Well, it was the facts of life. I don't remember anything about it now. I just remember reading it. Well, you went to these retreats and you heard these ceremonies.
You should never sit alone in a room with a boy.
Sure, I didn't understand the word of what they were saying. I remember one particular retreat, there was someone who obviously knew better than I did.
You should never be alone with a boy. How tickled.
Well, every one of us got 6 slaps because nobody would own up to who laughed. The one thing you were taught was that
You should never be alone with a boy.
And I thought that's how you got pregnant. Is that how you get pregnant? What happened?
So boy, how's your
When I left school, there wasn't much to do. I went to work for a relative who ran the local garage. You had to wear these big brown overalls. Just what they called an apprenticeship. They don't pay you. You serve 3 years for nothing.
Mind you, he had a girlfriend round about this time. A friend of mine, Teresa.
There was a ritual, a very clearly defined ritual. The boys did not chase the girls. It was the other way around. Now, if a girl fancied you, she didn't just walk up to you and say,
I fancy you.
no, her friend came up to you and said,
Tom, Teresa was asking for you.
this was the really important phrase, the gateway to paradise. It was up to you then to bump into the girl accidentally.
Oh, hello.
Maybe carry your bag or something. There was plenty of little lanes and byways where you brought your girl and maybe snatched an occasional kiss.
Oh, no! My brothers were going to a lot of the dances at this time, and their collars would have to be ironed until they shone. Tom was quite good. He often took a turn at ironing his own trousers.
We'd all be going to the dances on a Sunday night. Living in a country place, the custom was to have open-air dances at the crossroads on fine summer evenings. People used to come from miles this way and that. There'd be fiddles and accordions, hundreds of people there. Too, but you had a bit of a way to go for that. Every year, for a bit of excitement, I'd go to the All-Ireland hurling final. That'd be good, yeah. There'd be the bands playing, we'd have a few drinks and sing a few songs. And when Cork won, put beat. Come on, boys, and you'll see lads and lasses follow me. Famous for all they will make your heart thrill. The boys, they will not charm you. The girls, they will not charm you. Here's up and all, says the boys up their hill. I took Josie with me to one of the matches when she got time off from work at the asylum.
I know Dublin is a lovely place, but I am not happy with my work at the asylum.
So what are you going to do about it?
Well, I've applied for a job in Epsom, in England.
You have you?
Yeah.
Well, good luck, Josie.
Thanks. They wrote saying I was accepted. They sent the letter to Bridie Wilson. I hadn't even told her I was applying. She was wild with me.
After putting up with all your whinging, your crying, your sniffling, Oh, Anna, you're just about manageable, so you're going to leave us. Ah, well, you can go to England. And you can go to hell.
I always meant to write back to her and say, well, welcome to hell. And it's not such a bad place after all. Now, dear Mum and Dad, the people at Epsom are the kindest people I've ever met. The patients are properly looked after and properly treated. It is a hospital, not a madhouse. I'm doing my nursing exams. And the nurses are a jolly lot. Last week, on our afternoon off, me and this little nurse went up to the Epsom Derby. We've ordered a taxi to take us there, but the man at the gate said...
You're wasting your time. Taximen won't be bothered with you girls on the day of the Derby.
No, why not?
Because the race season is the taximan's harvest, bringing the people up to the course.
So, we legged it. And on the way there, a van stopped, and the man said...
Look at it, ladies.
And the little nurse from Waterford said...
Sure, what would Matron say if she saw us going up in that van?
She would be very pleased to be offered a lift, and she'd take it too. Come on. And the van took us right up to the grandstand. Now, I was bustling through because I had some money to put on the horses for some of the dares.
Josie, there he is. See him.
Hey!
Pass me up that young lady before she kills herself or somebody else.
And I got a grandstand view from the top of the bookmaker's car.
And...
Oh my God, there he goes.
Which one's that?
The brown one, you see him?
With the four legs.
Come here,
Oh my God, is it the layout?
Come here, the first one in the
So you see, Mum and Dad, I am really happy to be here. I'm sending you a postal order for £2, as I've had my first month's wages. I hope you're all well. Love, Josie.
Back home in Ireland, I was getting to know some of the girls. Then they were all going off to England and America. Well, there was big families in every house. A lot of them had to go. So, you said, we'll go somewhere too. We'll follow them. We certainly won't find anything here. When we were young, we'd heard great stories about what there was to be had overseas. I thought would be a better life and great prospects. So, the first opportunity I got, I threw a few things into a suitcase, and at 17, got on the boat to Holyhead. It was more like a cattle boat, the Princess Maud. I think she went down in the end. Now, this was before the war. I had a job to get a job. I got taken on by some Irish workers digging drains as a tea boy. Just living on what they'd give you. No cards, no money, no nothing. Just what they'd give you. A couple of nights I walked all around London because I couldn't find a room. I went up the West End, round by Shaftesbury Avenue and Coventry Street. I got frightened by the ladies of the night when they approached me. I didn't want to talk to them, and I didn't want to run away in case people thought I'd done something. So I walked rather fast.
Oh, isn't he lovely?
And I didn't go that way again. Oh, Mary, this London's a wonderful sight, with the people all working by day and by night. Now they don't sow potatoes, nor barley, nor wheat, but there's gangs of 'em digging for gold in the street. At least when I asked them, that's what I was told. So I just took a hand at this digging for gold. But for all that I've found there, sure I might as well be where the mountains of Moran sweep down to the sea. Hey, I heard of a job going at a massive engineering works down near the Blackwall Tunnel, Delta Metalworks. It was the end of the world to me. Red hot metal and furnaces and noise. And there was a bunch of fellas there who hated me just because I was Irish. A week after I started, I was dipping copper into the acid tank to descale it. This fella shoved me from behind and my hand went right into the acid. And he took every bit of the skin off it. And then I'd find half my stuff missing that I'd worked on the day before. Someone's been at my stuff. There's only half what I've done here.
Why don't you get out of it, you Irish bastard? Go back home where you belong.
So I went for them. Now, I'd never been a violent man. I gave him the biggest hammer than he'd ever had. Now, the weather was picking up, so was the building trade. I got taken on as an apprentice joiner by a big building firm. Began to settle down. Found myself some digs where there'd always be a warm bed and a good meal. And 8 years I stayed there. But I'd always try to get home at Christmas to see the family.
Time!
You've got the school start now, haven't you?
Yeah, I got it in 10 subjects.
Well, you'll be wanting to find your freedom. A job, some money of your own.
Well, I was hoping to be a librarian, but I didn't get the only job that came up in that line.
Ah, sure. It's probably who you know, not what you know.
Well, someone else who had more clout than me got the job. That irritated me no end. But an aunt who I used to sit with in the afternoons, she saw a job advertised in the paper.
Oh, a parlour maid in a private house in Virginia Water.
That sounds a pretty place.
Yeah.
Well, my aunt wrote away and she got me the job in England. Oh, I couldn't get away quick enough. She gave me all sorts of good advice where I was going.
Now, don't go into any dark places. You know, stay out in the lights. And don't go away from the lights, or you'll get into trouble.
Well, I took one small suitcase. They would provide the uniform. My mother had to find the fare, so she sold the big fat pig. That bought me my case as well. Well, when I was going, my father said,
If you go to that pagan country, you'll never darken my door again.
well, I suppose a lot of the Irish girls did get into trouble when they went to England. My mother, she was more easygoing.
Oh, Kitty. Now, you don't have to stay there if you don't like it. Don't be unhappy over there. You just send us word. We'll bring you home. Pray God and His blessed Virgin Mother to carry you all the way through. See there.
Well, I had not travelled before and I thought it was a great adventure. I went on a train to Dublin. I had not been on a train in my life before and I thought it was marvellous. Well, I had to find my way to Dunleary and my aunt had just said,
Follow the crowd, you'll be all right. Just follow the crowd.
well, I got to Dunleary all right. And I bought myself a postcard, a picture of the ship. I can remember to this day what I wrote on it. Ready for off now. Cheerio, Kitty. Didn't know then, but I learned later that my mother cried for weeks and weeks when I'd gone. She said,
I'd lost her. Forever. Carrying down the heath is brown, the clouds are dark over Adnaleen, and many a stream comes rushing down to swell the angry on her buoy. The moaning blast is sweeping fast, many a leafless
She was opening her handbag and her papers and the whole lot fell out into the sea. So she came over here. She didn't know what to do. Her reference and everything was gone. So she went to the priest, and the priest, he wrote out another reference for her. Mary Murphy, says he, had a good character when she left Ireland, but she lost it coming over on the boat.
Well, the woman that I went to work for, Mrs. Salmon, she was very old, very quiet, and very, very strict. Are you the new girl? Yes, ma'am. How do? Well, I was given a tiny little attic bedroom to sleep in. There was a chest of drawers, a single bed, and a mirror. That was it. Nothing else. Oh, I felt so lonely. Well, I was lost, really. I cried and cried and cried.